security vulnerability and exploit. There are several vulnerabilities which can occur or which a system or device can have. Looking at them one after the other. Have hardware vulnerabilities or meltdown vector. So another word for meltdown is hardware vulnerability. Hardware vulnerability are most often the result of hardware design flaws. For example, the RAM. You know how your random access pieces are? Have a lot of capacitors, and these capacitors hold electric charges. And most of the time, they are installed on the RAM close to one. So, due to their proximity, changes applied to one capacitor influence neighbor ring capacitor. This design flaw creates an effect called row hammer. So, by repeatedly accessing or hammering a row of memory, the row hammer explodes, triggers electrical interferences, and eventually corrupts the data stored inside. Looking at the meltdown vector more deeply, Google security researchers covered meltdown as two hardware vulnerabilities affect almost all CPUs released since 1995 in desktops, laptops, servers, smartphones, smart devices, and cloud services. So attackers exploiting these vulnerabilities can read all memory from a given system, data handled by other applications. So the data handled by other applications is called Spectre. So the meltdown and Spectre vulnerability exploitations refer to side channel, which is the implementation of a computer system that allows you to gain information. So they can compromise large amounts of memory data because of mirrors times the attack the attack runs on this minimal possibility of a crash or other errors. So errors in the operating system or application code usually introduce software vulnerability. For example, the sinful knock vulnerability allowed attackers gain control of enterprise-grade routers such as legacy Cisco ISR routers from which they could monitor all network at other networks. That's software vulnerability. So when an altered iOS version installs on the router, this vulnerability introduces into the system, or this vulnerability is introduced into the system. So to avoid this, you should always verify the integrity of the downloaded iOS image since if it's such equipment authorized house on. So one of the ways that software vulnerabilities are when people go online to download the update or it on their devices. For example, um, someone's device may not be compatible with software updates from a proper store. Let's assume from Apple Store, right? Your iPhone cannot accept the latest iOS version. So you now go online, download an ISO file of latest iOS version, use a software to install it on iPhone. Now that can create vulnerability in your iPhone because your iPhone does not have all the hardware requirements to run that particular operating system of. So most security vulnerabilities fall into several main categories. One of them is buffer overflow. So buffers are memory areas protected to an application. So when writing data beyond the limit, the vulnerability of by changing data beyond the boundaries of a buffer, one can access memory. This can lead to a system crash, data compromise, or provide escalation of risk. Another example of security vulnerability is non-validated input. So programs often require input, but this incoming data could have malicious content. unintentionally forces the program to give. For example, consider a program that receives an image processing. Malicious user could have an image file with invalid image dimension, maliciously crafted dimension, force the program to create buffer, incorrect and expected sizes. That is an example of another category of software vulnerability is race conditions. So this vulnerability describes a situation where the output of an event depends on ordered or output inputs. So a race condition became a source of exposure when required order of not occur in the correct order or at the proper time. Another category is weakness in security practices. So authentication, authorization, and encryption protect systems. Developers should use security techniques that have already been created by some bodies global instead of attempting to create their own security. Tend to create their own security algorithm will most likely introduce new. Another category is access control problem. So access control is the process of controlling who does what and ranges from managing physical access to equipment or detecting who has access to resources, such as a file, what they can do with those files, such as reading the file, executing the file, deleting the file. So the improper use of access control it's crazy vulnerable. So nearly all access controls and security um, practices will overcome if an attacker full access to target equipment. So for example, no matter the permission settings on the file, attacker can bypass the operating with the data directly off, right? If you set a file, if I take out a hard drive from someone's PC, look that um a hard disk casing next that my system physically, I can actually access those that have been in or that were in that person's. So still under security vulnerabilities, another one we need to look at software updates. So the goal of software update is to stay current and avoid exploiting. Microsoft app has released patches and daily. Companies or organizations respect them or updating applications such as web browsers. So always update your application. Companies, almost all companies releases patches regularly just so that they can keep up change in security landscapes. So even though organizations put a lot of effort patch and patching software vulnerability, discover new vulnerabilities regularly. That's why some organizations use third party, especially finding vulnerabilities in software, testing, and testing dedicated to searching, finding, and software vulnerabilities before they can get exposed. Google's Project Zero is an excellent example of after discovering several vulnerabilities in various software used by Google formed a permanent team dedicated to find vulnerabilities. Do a research on that.